What's up everyone, my name's Kamahl, welcome to another video. In the video today, we're going to be going over just the skill points for the Barbarian that they've shown us for Diablo 4. Now, Diablo 4, as we said, was just shown, just announced. This is a first look, first glimpse that we have of the skills for the Barbarian. In the first video, went over the skills as well as the talents. For the Druid, we're not going to be doing all of that in this video. We're going to break it down into more videos. The first one is going to be, once again, just the skills. So, the skill setup is going to be the same type that it was for the Druid. The left click is going to be a generator, the right click is going to be a spender, and then 1 through 4 are going to be different specialized type numbers with abilities correlating to them, such as defensive or like optimization, like more damage, defensive, brawling, things of that nature, weapon mastery, shit like that. Let's go over the skills though. So, first one we have is Bash, which is going to generate 9 Fury, and it bashes the enemy with your weapon, dealing X amount of damage, and has a 20% chance to stun for half a second. The next one we have is Flay. By the way, Bash, it does require a bludgeoning weapon, so depending on these skills that you're using with the Barbarian, it might change the weapon type that you're going to be using as well. Let's carry onward. So Flay is going to be a physical damage attack that requires a slashing weapon, generates 9 Fury, and it flays the enemy, dealing X amount of damage, and then causing them to bleed over 6 seconds, dealing additional bleeding damage. Then we have Frenzy, which is going to generate 5 Fury. The reason it generates 5 Fury is because it causes you to attack faster, and you are able to generate it faster. So, as we read through, it says unleashes a rapid flurry of blows, dealing X amount of damage with each pair of hit, and your attack speed is increased by 20% for 3 seconds, up to 60%. It does require you to be dual wielding. The last one we have is Lunging Strike. So Lunging Strike is going to generate 9 Fury, and it says it lunges forward and strike an enemy for X amount of damage. So the damage isn't very high, but it looks like it is going to provide a decent amount of mobility, causing you to leap forward at the target. Next, we're going to be looking at our resource spenders. So the first one we have is Rend. Rend is going to be requiring you to be using a slashing weapon. It costs 25 Fury to cast, and it cleaves the enemies in front of you, dealing X amount of damage and inflicting bleeding damage over 5 seconds. So, I'm curious if the Rend bleed as well as the Flay bleed may stack up on top of each other. That could be potentially pretty good, you know, nice steady damage over time. Let's carry on. This isn't a Theorycraft video. Hammer of the Ancients, which is going to cost 20 Fury to cast, and does require you to be wielding a two-handed bludgeoning weapon, so like a big two-handed staff or two-handed hammer or mace, something of that nature. I guess a hammer is a mace, but whatever. Slam your hammer down with the Fury of the Ancients, dealing X amount of damage in a concentrated area, so it's a nice little AoE, you know, you shall not pass type thing. Next we have Double Swing, which is going to be a dual-wielding attack for 25 Fury, which sweeps the weapons from opposite directions, dealing X amount of damage with each weapon. Enemies caught in the center are hit by both. Then we have Upheaval. Upheaval, it looks like it is requiring a two-handed weapon. It doesn't say any specific damage type, so just a two-handed weapon is required to use this ability. Costs 30 Fury. Says tear into the ground with your weapon and fling debris forward, dealing a pretty hefty amount of damage, but he has spec'd into this. The person that's showing the build has spec'd into this, so it could be playing a role as to how much damage we're seeing. And then the last one we are able to see as far as spenders go is good old Whirlwind. Whirlwind is going to cost 5 Fury per second, and it rapidly attacks nearby enemies for X amount of damage. Pretty standard Fury attack as we've always seen in the Barbarians. So next are going to be the number 1 skills, which is tagged as defensive type abilities. We have the first one is Rallying Cry, which is a shout, and it generates 18 Fury for you and has a cooldown of 20 seconds. And it says bellow a rallying cry, granting all allies unstoppable Unstoppable means the controlling impairing effects are removed and prevented. So bellow a rallying cry, granting all allies unstoppable, 23% increased movement speed, 23% increased damage for 6 seconds, or increased reduced damage, so essentially armor, for 6 seconds, and the fury generated as well as the movement speed and the damage reduction is increased with however much, I guess, you are able to spec into this, however many ranks are into it. So, let's look at the next one. You know, actually, those ranks that I'm seeing, those might be talents that they're spec'd into, but I'm honestly not sure. It could just be leveling up. I don't know. They, oh. As you level up your character, it levels up itself. That makes sense. Never mind. Let's carry on. Next one is going to be Ground Stomp. So Ground Stomp generates 6 Fury. That's a cooldown of 15 seconds. And it says smash the ground, stunning nearby enemies for 4 seconds. Then we have Undying Rage. It is a passive ability, so it's nothing that you cast. You set it to that, and it's just on. It's there. And it says when you take fatal damage, you have 5 seconds to fight for your life before you die. Killing an enemy in time will revive you and heal you for 39 seconds. So basically they give you Borderlands, which, I mean, that's kind of cool, I guess. And this effect can only occur once every about 3 minutes. So that's not terrible. That's not terrible. And the last one we have for our defensive abilities is Challenging Shout, which is another shout. It doesn't generate any fury, but it is a cooldown of 25 seconds. And it says fortify yourself for 38 and taunt nearby enemies for 8 seconds. During this time, you generate 5 additional fury when hit. And it says fortified characters take 30% decreased damage until all of their fortified life is removed. So, more tanky. Standard Barbarian, more tank, more heavy, more fun. Six Flags. So, the next one we have Brawling. This is going to be your number 2 abilities, and it looks like the first one is Kick, and this one doesn't generate any fury, but it does have a cooldown of 20 seconds. Kick the enemy for X seconds, or for X damage rather, and knock them backwards. On collision, enemies in the area take an additional X amount of damage. So, looks like you can kick the enemy, Spartan kick them into other enemies, and then cause them to do a nice little AoE. Sounds uniquely cool. Next we have Warcry, which is a shout. Generates 11 fury and has a cooldown of 25 seconds. It says bellow a mighty Warcry. You and nearby allies deal 3.6% increased damage per nearby enemies for 10 seconds up to 50%. So you can get up to 50% increased damage with this one. If you're around a lot of enemies, that's pretty good, potentially. So the next one we have is Leap. Leap forward and slam downward. It does have a cooldown of 15 seconds. Leap forward and slam downward, dealing X amount of damage on impact. And as you level up, does more damage. Next one we have, this is the last one of the Brawling, the last one on number 2, is Charge. So with Charge, you're going to rush forward and push the enemies with you. Wow, so you're gonna run forward and carry them with you, so you don't push them out of the way, you don't move them out of the way, you carry them with you, and then swing through them for X amount of damage. So that's interesting. Most of the time when you see something like that, it pushes them out of the way. I like that it carries them with you though. That's kind of cool. Next we have Weapon Mastery. This is going to be a number 3. We're working our way through. We're almost done here. We have the first one as Primal Axe. Primal Axe has a recharge of 20 seconds, and it says throw your weapon with a chain attached, dealing X amount of damage and pulling enemies with it. So you throw it and you fucking pull them in. Get over here. That's cool. Next we have Rupture. 10-second cooldown. This one is going to actually require you to be using a two-handed slashing weapon, so like a two-handed sword. I'm not sure if they're going to have halberds or anything like that, but something like that, potentially a spear, depending on how that is. You know, if they make you poke with a spear, if it's got a slashing, I don't know. It all depends on how they do it. But for Rupture, it says skewer the enemies in a line, inflicting a very fairly hefty amount of bleeding damage over 3 seconds. If an enemy dies while bleeding, the cooldown is reset. Interesting. I actually like that. I like when they allow you to reset the cooldown if you are able to get a killing blow with things. That makes it pretty cool, and it adds a little bit more flavor to the skill itself. Last one we have for our number 3 weapon skill is going to be Death Blow. Death Blow has a 15-second cooldown. It says attempt a killing strike dealing X amount of damage to enemies in front of you. If this kills an enemy, the cooldown is reset, and this one, it also requires you to be doing a slashing weapon. So it seems like it's very similar to Rupture. It looks like it does a lot less damage, but it's not bleeding. It's like direct damage, just hit, and it does not apply it and wait for it to actually do its thing. So it depends on the scenario, I guess. So the last thing we'll look at is our ultimate abilities that they've showed us. We have 3 out of the 4 that we can see, or at least as far as they've shown us so far. The first one is looking like Wrath of the Berserker. So Wrath of the Berserker, it generates 30 Fury, and it has a cooldown of 60 seconds, so 1 minute cooldown. It looks like all of these have a fairly high cooldown, but that's standard with an ultimate, I'd suppose. Go Berserk for 15 seconds. Every 20 Fury you spend increases the effect by 65%, and Berserking increases your damage by 25% and your movement speed by 30%. The next one we have is going to be Call of the Ancients. For Call of the Ancients, it says you call upon the Ancients to aid you in battle for 12 seconds. So very similar to Call of the Ancients that we've seen in Diablo 3. And it is on a 75-second cooldown, so that's 1 minute 15-second cooldown. And then the last one we have is Iron Maelstrom. That one is a 50-second cooldown, just under a minute. Whirl your weapons around you on a chain, continually dealing X amount of damage. Requires a 2-handed weapon. So it's kind of like it just makes me think of like the old what was it? Old God of War, when Kratos would spin his weapons all around him. Yeah. But yeah, there's the Barbarian skills. In the next video, we'll be going over the talents. You can see that this video is still pretty long. That's the reason I wanted to break these up into 2 separate videos for each one, because we have a bit more to go over with these than we did with the Druid. So, I mean, it is what it is. If you enjoy this video, if you want to see more content like this, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and if you want to show any type of monetary support, the links to do so are down in the description below, as well as the Discord channel. There we go. I'm out!